She called me an old fool and wished me a happy begging life. My daughter-in-law, Jessica, stood by a freshly dug pool, sipping champagne, laughing as she told me she'd stolen $5 million, my granddaughter's inheritance, my son's legacy. She thought I was a grieving, broken old man. She thought she had won. She was about to learn that you don't steal from Robert Thorne and walk away. You don't humiliate the man who built this city. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up facing the enemy who wore my son's ring. It started 4 weeks ago with a silence that tried to kill me. The silence in my penthouse was heavy. It wasn't the quiet of peace. It was the sound of absence. 4 weeks, exactly 4 weeks since I buried Michael, my son, my only child. I built this city, Thorne Enterprises. 50 years of sweat, risk, and ruthless negotiation. I built skylines, but the buildings meant nothing now. I only cared about Michael. He was the good part of me. He ran our charities. He reminded me why we built anything at all. A car accident, a rainy night. Just like that, my world ended. I was 70 years old, and I felt weak. The only light left was Michael's family, his wife Jessica, and their daughter Lily. 4 years old? She had Michael's eyes. Jessica was beautiful, charming. I thought she loved him. At the funeral, she was the perfect picture of grief. She clung to me. Her tears felt real against my suit. "I'm lost without him, Robert," she whispered. I believed her. I vowed to protect them. I vowed to honor Michael. That vow was my first mistake. A few days later, David came to see me. David has been my lawyer, my consigliere for 30 years. He knows where every dollar is buried. He placed a leather binder on my desk. The weight of it felt unbearable. "Robert," David said gently, "we need to address Michael's personal estate." Michael had his own assets, separate from the company. The centerpiece was a liquid investment fund, exactly $5 million. His will is clear, David explained. He kept cleaning his glasses, a nervous habit I recognized from countless negotiations. The $5 million is for Lily, an irrevocable trust for her future. "And Jessica?" I asked. "She receives the house and a generous monthly allowance from the main family trust." It sounded right. Michael always put Lily first. "You are the sole executor, Robert." David continued. "Michael wanted you to oversee Lily's fund." I nodded. The responsibility was crushing, but the grief made me slow. Stupid. I just wanted the pain to stop. I didn't know the real pain hadn't even begun. Jessica started coming around more often. She brought Lily. It helped, seeing Lily smile. But Jessica seemed fragile, overwhelmed by the finances. "Robert, I don't understand any of this," she told me one afternoon. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She looked exhausted. "The bills are piling up. Lily's school tuition is due. I feel so helpless. She looked so small, so broken. I wanted to fix it. That's what I do. I fix things." I authorized David to give her access to the estate's expense account. "Just for the basics." "Are you sure, Robert?" David asked. "It's irregular. She's grieving," Eddie. "Just do it." But it wasn't enough. She always needed more. The requests became frequent. Larger. I was too lost in my own sorrow to see the red flags. They were waving right in front of my face, and I missed every single one. Then she came to me with the proposal. She sat opposite me, twisting her wedding ring. A nervous energy radiated from her. "Robert, the $5 million for Lily..." "No, it's just sitting there." I stiffened. "It's in a secure trust." "Jessica." "I know, but it could be doing more." She leaned forward, her eyes wide and set. "I have an investment opportunity. It's something Michael was looking into. Using Michael's name. That was calculated. It's safe," she promised, "and it would double the money for Lily's future." Double the money. Securing Lily's future felt like the only thing I had left. "What kind of investment?" I asked, hesitant. "It's complicated. Real estate overseas. I just need temporary administrative access to the trust account to facilitate the investment." Temporary access. The words sounded harmless enough. I looked at her, Lily's mother, Michael's wife. She seemed so sincere. and I was desperate to feel useful, to honor my son. I made the biggest mistake of my life. I called David. I told him to draw up the papers. Robert, David warned me, his voice tight, granting administrative access, even temporarily, is incredibly risky. Irrevocable trusts are designed to prevent this. She's family, David. I have to trust her. My grief was a blindness, and I walked right into the darkness. I signed the papers. Jessica signed the papers too. She thanked me profusely. Tears streamed down her face. I thought they were tears of gratitude. You won't regret this, Robert, she promised. I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we were turning a corner. I couldn't have been more wrong. For a week, things seemed calmer. I thought perhaps she was busy with the investment. Then, the anomalies began. Small things, things that didn't quite fit. Maria, my longtime housekeeper, mentioned it first. Maria helped care for Lily. She saw everything. Mr. Thorne, Maria said quietly while dusting my study. Mrs. Thorne bought a new car. Oh, what kind? A Mercedes G-Wagon. The big expensive one. Black. I paused. That car cost over... She said, it's safer for Lily, Maria added, but her eyes were troubled. She didn't believe it. I dismissed it. A bigger car for safety, maybe, but a knot tightened in my stomach. Why hadn't she mentioned it to me? The expense account wasn't meant for luxury vehicles. The unease wouldn't go away. A few days later, I was reviewing the company financials. Thorne Enterprises owned the luxury villa where Michael and Jessica lived. I noticed a massive utility bill, 10 times the normal amount. I called the property manager, Mr. Henderson. Mr. Henderson, what is going on at the villa? Oh, Mrs. Thorne is having extensive renovations done, Mr. Thorne, Henderson explained cheerfully. Renovations? What kind of renovations? My voice sharpened. A new pool, a home theater, expanding the master suite. It started last week. Very high-end work, sir. Renovations? Without asking me? The villa was company property. The knot in my stomach tightened into a cold, hard ball of dread. This wasn't grief spending. This was something else entirely. That night I couldn't sleep. The silence in the penthouse felt menacing now. I went into my study. The city lights glittered below. My city. I turned on my computer. My hands were shaking. I logged into the online portal for Lily's trust account. I still had oversight. I was still the trustee. I just hadn't checked, 'cause I trusted her. The screen loaded. My heart stopped. The balance didn't read $5,000. It read 0. I stared at the screen. The number burned into my eyes. I refreshed the page. My breath hitched. 0. I logged out. I logged back in. 0. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I clicked on the transaction history. My eyes scanned the screen, desperate for an explanation. A mistake? A glitch? But there was no mistake. A series of massive wire transfers, starting the day after I granted her access. $500,000, $1 million, $2 million. The money was routed through several banks, a complex web, and finally it disappeared. An offshore account in the Cayman Islands. She hadn't invested it. She hadn't made a mistake. She had systematically, calculatedly, stolen the entire amount. My daughter-in-law stole $5 million of my late son's inheritance. The money for my granddaughter, Michael's legacy, gone. I felt a physical blow. It wasn't the money. I had more money than I could ever spend. It was the betrayal, the violation of my son's memory. The grief that had paralyzed me evaporated, replaced by a cold, clear rage I hadn't felt in decades. I picked up my keys. My hands were steady now. I drove to the villa. The gates were wide open. Contractors were everywhere. The sound of saws and hammers filled the air. The sound of Lily's money being spent. I walked through the chaos. I found her by the newly dug hole where the ob was going in. She was sipping champagne, talking on the phone. She was wearing designer clothes, bright colors, not the mourning black she wore around me. She looked happy. Jessica, I shouted over the noise. She turned, startled. Her smile faded instantly. Her expression hardened. She upped the phone. Robert, you should have called. Her voice was ice. Where is the money, Jessica? I didn't bother with pleasantries. She took a sip of champagne, trying to look unbothered. What money? Don't play games with me, I warned, my voice dangerously low. Lily's trust fund, the $5 million. The account is empty. Her mask slipped. The grieving widow vanished. The woman standing in front of me was a stranger. Her eyes were sharp and cold. Oh, that, she scoffed. She actually scoffed. I needed it. Needed it? My voice rose. That was Lily's future. That was Michael's legacy. She laughed, a cruel, ugly sound that cut through the construction noise. Michael is dead, Robert, she sneered, walking towards me. She stopped inches from my face. And frankly, he was boring, she whispered, her voice dripping with contempt. Boring. It's my son, the best man I ever knew. I spent 5 years pretending to be the devoted wife, she continued, her voice rising now, while he wasted his time on charity projects. I deserve this money. I earned it. My blood boiled. She hadn't earned anything. She had stolen everything. You stole it, I whispered, horrified by the transformation. You lied to me. Stole? No. I took what was mine, she spat. And what were you going to do? Control me? Make me beg for every dime? Like you controlled Michael? She stepped closer. Her face was twisted with an arrogance that took my breath away. You think you're so powerful? Robert Thorne? The big man who owns the city. But you're just a grieving old man who let me walk away with everything. She wasn't finished. She wanted to twist the knife. I'm leaving, Robert. I'm starting a new life. A life I deserve. And you're finished. You're weak. You're nothing. She spat the next words at me, full of venom. I wish you a happy begging life. You old fool, old fool. The words hit me harder than any physical slap. The sheer cruelty, the disrespect for Michael. In that moment, something inside me broke, and something else clicked into place. The passive, grieving father vanished. The man who built an empire returned. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. At a getter, this monster wearing my son's ring, and I saw an enemy. I turned around and walked out of the villa. Her triumphant laughter echoed behind me. As I got into my car, my mind was clear. I knew exactly what I had to do. I pulled out my phone and dialed David. David, I said when he picked up. My voice was steel. Robert? Are you all right? You sound... We have a war to fight. Then I called my lawyer. I met David at his office, an hour later. I laid out everything, the transaction history, the confession by the pool. David listened silently. His face grew grim. She played you, Robert. She used your grief against you. I know. Now I want to destroy her. The first step was containment. We needed to strike fast, before she could disappear. David suggested the legally sound approach. We start with a financial freeze, he said, pulling out a legal pad. We petition the court. It will take time, but it's the proper channel. I shook my head. No, I don't want procedure. I want immediate, visible retaliation. Robert, if we act rashly, it could appear vindictive in court later. David warned. I don't care, I snapped. I want to shake her confidence, make her panic. We cannot let her feel powerful for another minute. I overruled him. We would strike at her lifestyle first. The villa, I said, my voice cold. It's owned by Thorne Enterprises. Yes, a company asset. Revoke it. Immediately. I want her out by tonight. David nodded. I'll draw up the revocation of residency. I didn't just have it served. I sent my security team, led by Frank, a former Marine, loyal and efficient. I watched the security footage on my laptop. Frank's team arrived at the villa. They evicted the contractors, who scattered like rats. They changed the locks. They secured the premises. When Jessica returned that evening, surrounded by designer shopping bags, she found her key didn't work. She screamed. She threatened. She banged on the door. Frank calmly handed her the legal notice. This is my house, she shrieked. No, ma'am, Frank replied evenly. This is Mr. Thorne's house. Her luxury villa was cancelled. Next was the car. The $50,000 Mercedes G-Wagon. She had leased it using the company account I had foolishly granted her access to. It was also company property. The car, David, get it back. We tracked the GPS. She was at the Regency Hotel downtown, a 5-star hotel. She was trying to maintain the illusion of luxury. I was going to shatter it. That evening, a repossession team arrived at the hotel valet. They presented the documentation. The hotel manager, eager to avoid any legal trouble with my company, handed over the keys. I watched the valet cam footage as they towed it away. Jessica ran out into the driveway, screaming at the tow truck driver. It was deeply satisfying. I received a notification when the car was secured in my company garage. "What do you want to do with it, Robert?" David asked the next morning. "Sell it. Immediately. At auction." I don't want to see it again. We sold her Mercedes. Within 24 hours, Jessica's world had started to crumble. But this was just the beginning. My next priority was Lily. My granddaughter, I couldn't let Jessica take her. I had David file an emergency custody petition. We cited the massive fraud and her unstable behavior. If this story has you on the edge of your seat, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories like this to light. We thought we had a strong case, but Jessica fought dirty. She went to the media. The headlines the next day were brutal. I stared at the newspaper, my coffee turning cold. Tattoon throws grieving widow and child onto the street. Robert Thorne's heartless vendetta. She painted me as a monster, a greedy, unstable old man trying to steal from his own family. She didn't mention the $5 million. The public opinion turned against me. Fast. My own board members started calling. They were nervous. The stock price dipped. The custody battle became a nightmare. Jessica played the victim perfectly. She cried on cue in court. She accused me of emotional abuse. "He's trying to erase me from Lily's life," she sobbed to the judge. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar, and the judge seemed to be buying it. We needed leverage. We needed proof of her character. We needed to break through the facade. I turned to Maria, the housekeeper. Maria had seen everything. The shopping sprees, the late-night visitors, the neglect of Lily while Jessica planned her new life. But when I asked her to testify, she refused. "I can't, Mr. Thorne," Maria whispered, her hands trembling. We were sitting in my study. She threatened me.
"Threaten you? How?"
She said she knows people, that she could have me deported. My papers, they are not completely in order. I looked at Maria. She had been loyal to my family for 20 years. She loved Lily. This was a conflict I hadn't anticipated. Maria's safety versus Lily's future. I had to convince her. "Maria," I said gently, "I promise you, I will protect you. You will have the best immigration lawyers money can buy. I will personally guarantee your safety." She hesitated, tears welling in her eyes. "I am so scared." "I know, but Lily needs you. Michael would want you to protect his daughter." It took hours. I promised her a better job, a raise, full legal support. Finally, the love for Lily outweighed her fear. She agreed to tether. Maria's testimony was devastating. She stood in the courtroom, her voice shaking but clear. She described Jessica's erratic behavior, her obsession with money, the way she ignored Lily for hours. She described the day I confronted Jessica. She heard the laughter. She heard the insults. The judge listened intently. Jessica's lawyer tried to discredit Maria, attacking her immigration status. But David was ready. The facade cracked. The judge started to see the real Jessica. Temporary custody was awarded to me. Lily was safe, but the war was far from over. Meanwhile, the financial investigation was hitting walls. The $5 million was gone, locked behind the strict privacy laws of the Cayman Islands. "We can't crack it without a criminal indictment, Robert," David explained. "And even then, it's difficult." She hired experts. The money is well hidden, layered through shell corporations. We were bleeding money on legal fees. The investigation was stalled. Jessica still had the money. She was still out there, plotting. The setback was painful. David suggested a compromise. He hated protracted legal battles. "Robert, we can approach her lawyer with a deal," he said, cleaning his glasses again. She returns half the money, $2.5 million, and we drop the criminal charges. We keep full custody of Lily. Half? I stared at him. It's a pragmatic solution. We recover some funds and avoid a years-long international legal battle. Compromise? After what she did, after what she called me, the cold fury rose in my chest. I struggled between financial prudence and the need for absolute justice. Justice won. No, I said, my voice shaking. I want it all back, and I want her in jail.
David nodded slowly.
All right, Robert, then we dig deeper. I needed to know more about Jessica. Who was she really? I hired a team of private investigators, the best money could buy. Find everything, I instructed them. Every skeleton in her closet. They dug deep into her past. And what they found was disturbing. Jessica had a history of targeting wealthy men, a trail of broken relationships, lawsuits, and debts. She was a professional con artist. But that wasn't the worst part. The most shocking discovery was her connection to a man named Mark Sullivan. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Mark Sullivan, he was an old business rival, a ruthless man I had competed against 20 years ago. I had won a major city contract. I exposed his unethical practices in the process. Bribes, kickbacks. He was bankrupted, disgraced. He lost everything, and he had sworn revenge. Suddenly, it all clicked into place. The sophisticated money laundering, the calculated manipulation. This wasn't just about greed, it was organized revenge. Jessica hadn't just stolen from me. She had conspired with my enemy to destroy me. She had targeted Michael. She had infiltrated my family. The betrayal felt deeper, colder. It tainted my memories of Michael. Had he known? I needed answers. I went to Michael's old study, in the villa. I had Frank let me in. The room felt cold, empty. Jessica had cleared most of it out, but she missed something. I started searching. I didn't know what I was looking for. Proof. A sign. I noticed the back of the bottom desk drawer was loose. I pulled at it. Behind it, tucked under a loose board, I found it, a small, locked journal, leather-bound. My hands trembled as I broke the lock. It was Michael's handwriting. The entries from the last year of his life painted a devastating picture. He knew about Jessica's lies. And he knew about Mark. I sat in the dust-covered chair and read my son's last words. May 15th, I saw them again. Jessica and Mark Sullivan, at the charity gala. She said he was a potential investor. But the way they looked at each other, I feel like I'm losing my mind. She's gaslighting me. June 2nd, I confronted her. She denied everything, called me paranoid, but I checked the phone records. They talk every day. I have to protect Billy. I have to protect Dad. My son was trying to protect me. June 10th, I called David. I'm changing the will. I'm filing for divorce. I have to get out before they destroy everything. Sullivan is dangerous. The last entry was dated the day before the accident. My son died unhappy, betrayed, and terrified. He was trying to fix his mistake. He was trying to protect us. And he died before he could. The grief returned, sharper and more painful than before. I clutched the journal to my chest, sobbing silently, and then a dark thought crossed my mind. A terrible, chilling suspicion. The accident. Michael's car had suddenly veered off the road. The police said it was a mechanical failure, brake line issue. But what if it wasn't? What if Mark Sullivan found out Michael was leaving Jessica, that their plan was falling apart? What if they killed my son? I sat in the dark irk. The weight of the suspicion was crushing. I could launch an investigation. I could try to prove they were murderers, but it would be a media circus. The scandal would be explosive. It would drag Michael's name through the mud, and it would traumatize Lily. She would grow up knowing her mother killed her father. I had to choose vengeance for my son, or protection for my granddaughter. It was the hardest choice of my life. I closed the journal. I buried the suspicion deep inside me. I couldn't risk Lily's future. I had to focus on what I could prove. The fraud. The conspiracy. The journal didn't just bring pain. It brought the leverage I needed. Conspiracy to defraud a trust. It was a serious crime, and now we had proof that it was premeditated, that Mark Sullivan was involved. We now had the evidence to force the Cayman Islands banks to cooperate. I called David. We brought the journal to the FBI. We met with Agent Miller, specializing in international fraud. The scope of the conspiracy galvanized them into action. The accounts were frozen. The $5 million was locked down. But Jessica and Mark were still out there. They knew the net was tightening. They were desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. We needed to lure them out. We needed to set a trap. We need bait, I told David and Agent Miller, and we need them to believe they have won. That I am the old fool they think I am. I instructed David to leak information, that I was tired, that the public scandal was destroying me, that I was willing to negotiate a settlement to make it all go away. I offered them a deal, a generous one. $1 million cash, unfrozen the stolen funds, and shared custody of Lily. In exchange, they would drop their claims on the rest of the estate. David looked at me like I was crazy. Robert, shared custody? After everything? Using Lily as bait felt wrong. It felt like a betrayal of Michael. I struggled with the morality of it. Was I becoming the monster I was trying to destroy? It's a tactic, Robert, David reminded me. A necessary evil to bring them to justice. They won't get near Lily. They will be in jail, I agreed, but the decision left a bitter taste in my mouth. We were betting on their greed and their arrogance. They bit. Their lawyer called David. They agreed to the term. But Mark Sullivan was cautious. He sensed a trap. He's demanding a neutral location, David told me. A hotel conference room in a neighboring state. He was trying to control the situation, to minimize the risk. I had to refuse. I had to force them to come to my territory. No, I said, my office. Or no deal. It was a game of chicken. We risked spooking them. We waited. 2 days of silence. The tension mounted. Finally, their greed outweighed their caution. They agreed. The day of the meeting, the air in the conference room was thick with tension. I sat at the head of the large mahogany table. David sat beside me. The room overlooked the city skyline. The buildings bearing my name stood tall, my kingdom. The FBI agents were waiting in the adjacent room. Jessica and Mark walked in, smug and triumphant. Jessica was wearing an expensive white suit, untouchable. Mark had a predatory grin on his face. Robert, Mark said, extending his hand. It's been on time. Shame about Michael. I ignored his hand. My blood boiled, but I kept my face impassive. Let's get this over with. They sat down. David placed the settlement agreement on the table. The terms are as discussed, David said, his voice steady. Steady. Boone million transferred upon signing. Shared custody of Lily Thorne. He slid the document towards Jessica. Jessica reached for the pen. A smirk played on her lips. She looked at me, savoring the moment. I'm glad you finally came to your senses, Robert, she said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. You realized you couldn't win. Yes, I said. I realized. As she started to sign, her signature flowing onto the paper. I pressed a button hidden under the table. The signal. The conference room doors opened. Agent Miller and 3 FBI agents walked in. Calmly, efficiently. Jessica froze. The pen hovered over the paper. Her eyes widened in shock. Mark's grin vanished, replaced by sheer panic. He jumped to his feet, knocking his chair over. What is this? Mark demanded, his voice cracking. What have you done? This is justice, I said, standing up slowly. The power dynamic shifted instantly. David retrieved the settlement agreement. The signature was incomplete, void. In its place, he put down a thick file. The evidence. Michael's journal. The financial records. The proof of their conspiracy. Jessica Thorne, Mark Sullivan, Agent Miller announced, You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, grand larceny, and international money laundering. Jessica started to scream. You can't do this. You set me up. Robert, you monster. I looked at her, the woman who had destroyed my son's life. You called me an old fool. I said, my voice low and dangerous. You wished me a happy begging life. The agents pulled her arms behind her back. The handcuffs clicked shut. You thought you could steal from me? You thought you could destroy my son's legacy and dance on his grave? Mark struggled, shouting threats and curses. You'll regret this, Thorne. No, Mark, I replied coldly. You will. Jessica collapsed to the floor, sobbing hysterically. The elegant white suit was crumpled. The mask was gone. Please, Robert, don't do this, she begged, looking up at me with tear-filled eyes. The tears were real this time. Think of Lily. I'm her mother. I looked at her, feeling nothing but contempt. No, I said, my voice cold as ice. You are a thief, and you will never hurt Lily again. They dragged them away. The silence that followed was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. The trial was a media sensation. The evidence was overwhelming. Michael's journal was read in court. His words echoed in the silent courtroom, revealing the depth of their betrayal. The public opinion, once against me, turned into a wave of sympathy and support. Jessica and Mark turned on each other, blaming the other for the failure of their plan. It was pathetic. They were found guilty on all counts. They were sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The judge made a point of mentioning the cruelty of their crime. The $5 million was recovered. The funds were returned to Lily's trust. I was awarded full custody of Lily. Jessica's parental rights were terminated. We had systematically destroyed everything they tried to build. Their reputation, their freedom, their future. We ruined her life forever. In the weeks following her sentencing, my phone rang incessantly. It was Jessica, calling collect from prison. I never answered. David kept a log. The calls came at all hours of the day. 100 missed calls. 100. Finally, the count reached 210. She called Minir 210 times. David asked if I wanted to listen to the voicemails. I needed closure. I said yes. I sat in my study. The lights dimmed, and pressed play. The messages were a journey through her downfall. First, anger and threats. You'll pay for this, Robert. Then negotiation and denial. It was all Mark's idea. We can still make a deal? Finally, despair. Her voice was hoarse, broken by sobs. Please, Robert. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I loved Michael. Please don't let me die in here. I'm begging you. Crying and begging. I listened to every single message. I felt no pity. I felt only the heavy weight of justice. I deleted them all. A year later, I stood at the opening ceremony of the Michael Thorne Children's Center. It was a state-of-the-art facility dedicated to providing education and health care to underprivileged children. Michael's dream. It was funded by the $5 million Jessica had tried to steal. Michael's legacy was restored. His dream was alive. I held Lily's hand as we watched the ribbon cutting. She was 5 now. She looked so much like him. Is this for Daddy? She asked, looking up at me with her big, innocent eyes. Yes, sweetheart, I said, my voice thick with emotion. This is for Daddy. That evening I sat in my penthouse, watching the sunset over the city skyline. The buildings I built stood tall. The silence was back. But it felt different now. It was peaceful. I had won the war. But the victory was bittersweet. It didn't bring Michael back. The scars of his loss, the betrayal, the dark suspicion about his death, they would always remain. I looked at the picture of Michael on my desk, his smiling face, full of life and hope. I kept my promise, son, I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. I protected her. I protected your legacy. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest. But as I looked out at the city, I knew that I had done the right thing. I am an old man. My life has been filled with battles. Some I won, some I lost. But this one, the most important one, I won. I am Robert Thorne, and I am no one's fool. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.